The farmhouse sat alone beyond 3 empty fields, where the corn had long since died and turned the color of old paper. I remember the drive there more than anything else. The road was narrow. Wet branches scraped against the sides of my truck, like fingernails dragging across wood. Fog rolled low over the ground, swallowing the fence posts one by one until it felt like I was driving into nothing at all. The radio kept cutting to static. Not loud static, soft static. The kind that hums under a voice like someone whispering from another room. I had rented the farmhouse because I wanted silence. After the divorce, after the sleepless nights in the city, I thought maybe the countryside could quiet my head. The owner left the key beneath a cracked flower pot beside the porch. No neighbors, no lights for miles, just pale moonlight across empty land, and the sound of insects somewhere deep in the grass. Inside, the house smelled like dust and cold wood. Every room felt untouched. The clocks had stopped. Family photographs still hung on the walls, though every face had been scratched out carefully with something sharp. Upstairs, a hallway stretched into darkness, ending at a small window where fog pressed against the glass like breath. That first night, sometime after midnight, the power flickered once, then twice, and out beyond the barn, standing perfectly still near the tree line, that's when I saw it. The farmhouse sits at the edge of nowhere. Late autumn, the kind of cold that settles into wood and never leaves. I arrived just before sunset, when the sky was already bruising into gray-blue. The road behind me disappeared into dust and distance, like it had never existed at all. No neighbors, no traffic, only fields. Endless fields of dry grass stretching in every direction, bending slightly in a wind I could not feel on my skin. The house looked older up close, not abandoned, just forgotten, paint peeling in slow strips, wood swollen from years of rain. A porch that creaked under my weight, like it remembered other footsteps better than mine. I told myself it was what I needed. Quiet, distance, sleep. For years, sleep had been something I only visited in fragments. Broken hours, sharp dreams, waking up already exhausted. Here, I thought, it might finally stop, but the silence outside felt wrong. Not peaceful, not calm, empty in a way that pressed against my ears. Even the insects were gone. I noticed it first as the sun went down. No crickets, no night birds, no rustle of life in the grass. Just wind moving through fields that didn't seem to answer it. Inside, the farmhouse smelled like old paper and damp walls. I left my bag by the stairs and opened windows one by one, hoping air would fix the feeling building in my chest. It didn't. The silence only grew heavier. By nightfall, I had already checked every lock twice. The clock on the kitchen wall ticked too loudly, like it was trying to fill the emptiness on its own. That's when I first saw it. The barn sat far behind the house, half swallowed by the field, a dark shape against darker sky, and beside it, a figure, pale, still, not moving with the wind, not reacting to anything around it, just standing there like it had always been there, waiting for me to notice. I blinked. It was gone. I told myself it was exhaustion, travel, the long road, the lack of sleep, catching up in strange ways. But at 11:17 p.m., I saw it again. Same place, same posture, too still to be anything natural. The barn door hung slightly open behind it, creaking once in a while as the wind passed through, but the figure never moved, not even when the grass bent around its feet. I stood at the upstairs window, watching through glass that felt colder than the night outside. My breath fogged the pain. The figure remained, and I realized something that made my stomach tighten slowly. It was closer than before, not by much, just enough to notice if I stared long enough. A shift in distance that shouldn't have been possible. I turned off the light behind me, then turned it back on. When I looked again, it was gone. The field looked normal again, empty, still, forgetful. I should have slept, but sleep didn't come. Instead, I found myself at the window again around midnight, drawn back like something was calling without sound. That's when I saw the mud. Fresh footprints leading away from a barn. Dark, wet, wrong in the dry earth. They hadn't been there earlier. I went outside without thinking. The porch light flickered as I stepped down, throwing weak shadows across the yard. The air was colder than before, sharp enough to sting my lungs. The grass brushed against my legs as I followed the prints. They didn't wander. They came straight toward the house, each step deeper than the last. Like something heavy had been standing there longer than it should have. Halfway across the yard, I stopped. The footprints ended. Not faded, not lost, just stopped, as if whatever made them had simply lifted out of existence. I stood there for a long time, listening. Nothing answered me. Not the wind, not the house, not the fields. But when I looked back up toward the barn, it was there again, closer now, standing between me and the dark like it had always known where I would look next. I didn't remember moving, only the feeling of stepping backward onto the porch again, my hand already reaching for the door. Inside, I locked it, twice, then again, from the upstairs window. I watched until my eyes burned. The figure remained at the edge of the field, waiting, not approaching anymore, just closer than before. And somehow, that felt worse, because I understood then. It wasn't arriving. It was getting used to being near me. The nights after that first figure never feel like they end properly. They just stretch. The farmhouse settles into a colder rhythm, with groaning softly as wind drags across the fields. Everything outside stays still too long, like the world is waiting for permission to move again. I start noticing the radio before I even turn it on. A faint crackle through walls. Thin, faint, almost like rain trying to become sound. At first, I think it's just interference. Old wiring, old house problems. But it always comes from the same direction. The wheat field behind the barn. Midnight is when it sharpens. The static doesn't grow louder. It grows closer, as if something out there is learning how to speak through broken channels. One night, I take the radio down from the kitchen shelf. Dust on it shifts like it's been disturbed for the first time in years. I turn the dial slowly. Nothing but silence, then static, then something between both. A voice almost forming. I step outside. The field is darker than before, thicker, heavy like damp cloth against the eyes. And the radio in my hand reacts. It doesn't need signal. It already knows where to listen. Inside the wheat, something is waiting, not moving, not hiding, just present. The static grows sharper when I step closer, cutting to the air in thin waves that make my teeth ache. Then the sound changes, counting, backward, slow at first, measured, calm, like someone trying to remember how numbers end. 99, 98, 97. I stop walking. The wheat moves slightly, though there is no wind strong enough to cause it. It bends inward, not away, as if listening with me. The radio on my palm crackles harder now. The numbers continue, faster, closer, and then they begin to overlap with something else. Names, not spoken clearly, not fully formed, just fragments of sound shaped like identity. One of them feels familiar. It stops me cold. My own name, not said, but reached. The final number doesn't arrive like the others. It drags itself out of the static, and after it, silence, the kind that feels pressed against the skin. I drop the radio in the field. It doesn't break. It just keeps whispering upward into the wheat, buried but alive. I walk back without turning around, but I can still hear it counting, even inside the house. The creek behind the property is never mentioned by anyone in town. That alone should have been enough warning. But I find it anyway. Fog gathers there differently. Thicker near the ground, lighter above it, like layers of breath stacked without permission. The first light appears just after midnight. Not bright, not distant, suspended, hovering above the water, like something unsure it should be seen. It doesn't flicker like fire. It doesn't blink like electricity. It simply exists, still, waiting. I follow it. I don't remember deciding to. One moment, I am at the edge of the field. The next, I'm already inside the fog, water brushing against my boots, cold and slow. The air feels wrong in its timing, like every step arrives slightly late. The light moves ahead of me, never far, never close, just leading. The creek bends where it shouldn't, Trees lean inward as I pass, their branches soft against my shoulders. Then I notice something hanging from a tree. A backpack. Old, torn, heavy with damp. Mud still clings to it, like it was dropped recently, not years ago. Inside, nothing moves, except time. My watch stops. I only realize later because I lose track of how long I've been walking. Minutes don't line up anymore. Footsteps echo strangely behind me. But when I turn, there is nothing there but fog and water and the slow pulse of light ahead. The air grows colder, without temperature changing, like warmth itself is being removed piece by piece. The light pauses over water, and I understand, without knowing why, that it is waiting for me to stop following. But I don't. When I finally return, the creek feels different. Not gone, not changed, just aware that I saw it. That night, I don't sleep. The light returns anyway. Closer now, hanging just beyond the edge of the field. Watching the house the way something might watch a door it already knows how to open. The upstairs hallway never feels like part of the same house. The air changes there. Thinner, older, like the walls are remembering something I am not supposed to hear. The door at the end stays locked. Every night, I hear it open anyway. A slow creak, with bending against itself. Then stillness. When I check, the lock remains untouched. But the room is open. Inside is a child's bedroom, frozen in time, dust layered carefully over everything, as if even decay hesitates here. Small shoes near the bed, a chair turned slightly toward the window, drawings pinned unevenly to faded wallpaper. But the drawings are not random. They are wrong in sequence, as if they were made out of order or out of time. Tall figures stand beside a farmhouse in every sketch. Long limbs, no faces, only shape, watching, waiting. Each drawing shows them closer than the last, until the final one, where the bed is drawn, and someone is inside it. Me. The room gets colder each time I enter. Not temperature, presence, like the air itself is leaning closer, trying to recognize me from before I arrived. The window rattles slightly even when there is no wind outside, and behind it, the field is visible. But the field in the drawing does not match the field outside. One of them is older, or newer, or something that refuses to stay in order. The door never closes properly anymore. It remains slightly open, like something is still deciding whether to leave the room or stay in it with me. The storm arrives without warning. No build-up, no hesitation. Just sudden wind pressing against a farmhouse, like something trying to remember its shape. Rain hits the porch in uneven rhythms, with groans beneath each strike, old and tired, like it has heard storms before and learned nothing from them. I don't expect anyone to come here. No one ever does. But the knock begins anyway. 3 slow impacts against the door. Not urgent, not afraid, patient. The gas station clerk's warning returns to me in fragments. Never answer after midnight. Never open when the rain starts talking too loudly. I didn't think much of it then. Now I stand in the hallway, listening. The knock comes again. Same pattern, same spacing, as if it knows I'm counting. When I finally open the door, the storm feels louder. Wind presses inside briefly, carrying the smell of wet soil and something older beneath it. Something like iron left in dark places too long. He stands there, an old farmer, muddy overalls, wide-brimmed hat pulled low. Water slides off him, but never seems to reach his face, because there is no face. Only darkness where features should be. Lightning flashes. For a split second, I see it clearly. No eyes, no movement where eyes should be. Just emptiness shaped like a man. The porch light flickers, as if refusing to look at him directly. He doesn't step closer. He doesn't step back. He simply stands, as if the house itself called him here and forgot to explain why. Then the storm swallows the moment again, and he is still there. The silo stands beyond the barn like something forgotten on purpose. Tall, rusted, half sunken into the field. I start hearing it before I see it. Voice is carried through wind. Soft conversations breaking apart before meaning can fully form. They drift through the wheat like they belong there, like the field is speaking through them. Inside the silo, The air changes immediately. Claustrophobic. Heavy. Metallic. My flashlight cuts through dust that hangs too still, too dense, refusing to fall. Scratch marks spiral upward along the inner wall. Not random. Structured. Like something climbed using memory instead of hands. The voices continue. Closer now. They speak names. Some I don't recognize. Some I do. Each name lands like a stone dropped into water that never ripples. Then something shifts above me. Slow. Massive. Not falling. Waiting. I leave before I see it fully. But the silence that follows doesn't stay outside. It follows me back. Into the farmhouse. Into the vents. Into the corners of every room where sound used to live. Now only whispers remain. Morning fog changes everything it touches. It softens edges. Hides distance. Makes the world feel like it forgot how to be solid. That's when I first see her. At the far fence line. Standing perfectly still. Pale against the gray field. Watching. She never moves. Never shifts. Not even when wind passes through grass around her. I take a photograph out of instinct. But when I look at it later, the fence is there. The field is there. Everything is there. Except her. Locals don't like talking about this place. When they do, it's in fragments. A missing family. A farm abandoned without reason. A silence that settled over the land and never left. None of it feels like information. More like avoidance. One morning, she is no longer at the fence. She is at the porch swing. Closer than she should be. Still not moving. Still watching. And I realize she has never been coming toward the house. She has always already been here. Just at different distances. The road into town runs straight. Through open land. No turns. No interruptions. Just distance and sky. I leave during a storm that hasn't decided how loud it wants to be. Lightning splits the horizon in slow flashes. The radio is off, but static still feels present in the air. Halfway there, I see the light, hovering above the road. Not reflecting. Not shining. Waiting. The next thing I remember is sunrise. Parked miles away. Engine cold. Windshield covered in dried ash and wet mud from the inside. My hands are on the steering wheel, but I don't remember placing them there. For hours are gone. Not blurred. Not dreamlike. Missing. Like they were removed instead of forgotten. The road behind me feels unfamiliar now. As if I never truly traveled it in a straight line. At night, the house changes its rhythm. Not louder. Not quieter. Deeper. Like something beneath it has started matching my breathing without permission. The sound begins slowly. Soft inhale. Slow exhale. From beneath the floorboards. Not everywhere at once. From one spot. Then another. As if learning where the house is weakest. I find the crawl space behind a rusted panel under the hallway. Chain seal it shut. Old. Thick. Recently disturbed. The metal is scratched, but the rust is decades old. Something touched it recently anyway. Inside, photographs covered ground. Hundreds of them. Faded faces. Unknown visitors. Standing near the farmhouse at different times. Each image has the same pale light above it. Hovering. Watching. The breathing deepens at night. Stronger. Closer. Like the house itself has learned to inhale from beneath the floor. And now it refuses to stop. The cattle begin gathering at the edge of the forest without explanation. Every evening, same place, same silence. They stand facing the trees like they are waiting for something to answer back. No movement, no grazing, only stillness stretched across hours. One animal disappears without trace. No struggle, no sound, no disturbance in the ground. Just absence. That night, the forest hums. Low, deep, almost musical, like something inside it is remembering how sound used to work. By sunrise, the cattle are gone from the field. They are at the farmhouse instead. All of them, facing the windows, watching in perfect stillness. As if the house is now the thing being observed. The cornfield changes after sunset, not visually at first, not in any obvious way. It becomes crowded, even when nothing is there. The stalks lean in patterns that don't match the wind. Slow bends. Sudden pauses. Like something moving through them without revealing itself fully. I stand at the edge for a long time, listening to a pressure in the air that never becomes sound. Then I hear footsteps. Heavy, too heavy for anything I know. They circle the field in wide arcs, never breaking to the rows directly. The corn bends where they pass, snapping back slowly, like the field is trying to forget what touched it. Something moves inside faster than my eyes can track. Not walking, passing. A child's voice rises from within the stalks. Thin, distant, strained like it is being pulled through layers of earth. It calls for help. Not once, not clearly. Again and again, like the word is the only thing left intact. I step forward without meaning to. The corn presses closer immediately, brushing my arms, my face, cold and damp despite the air being dry. At dawn, the field is changed, flattened in strange circular patterns that make no sense from above or below. Not carved, not pressed, arranged, as if something briefly learned how to draw the land using pressure alone, and stopped halfway through the thought. The house begins to mark time differently after that, not by clocks, by events, and one of them always arrives at 2:14 a.m. 3 knocks, every night, same rhythm, same spacing, never rushed, never delayed, like the house is being checked for existence. The sound moves through walls, from the kitchen to the hallway to the bedroom door. Each time I follow it, it is already somewhere else, as if it refuses to stay still long enough to be located. Eventually, I trace it upward, to the attic. The door is heavier than it should be. It opens anyway. Inside, dust hangs in thick layers, disturbed only in narrow paths that feel recent. Dozens of tape recordings sit stacked in uneven rows. No labels, no order, just presence. One recorder is already playing when I enter. My voice comes through it, not recorded memory, immediate speech, the kind that hasn't happened yet. Talking about things I haven't done, answering questions no one has asked. Then static rises behind it, and everything collapses into white noise. The church sits beyond the edge of the farmland like something placed there and forgotten. No road leads cleanly to it, but it still exists. That alone feels wrong. The bell rings when I arrive. Slow, hollow, no rope, no machinery, just movement in metal that shouldn't move. Each ring echoes too long, stretching beyond the shape of sound. Inside, the pews are covered in dust, except for footprints. Fresh, still wet with mud, leading toward the altar. Beneath it, I find photographs. The same pale lights I've seen before, floating above fields, above houses, above moments I don't remember living. A recording plays from somewhere inside the church walls, voices overlapping, begging not to look upward, not in warning, in exhaustion, as if they have said it too many times already. The silence arrives without announcement. No barking, no distant chains, no nighttime movement from neighboring farms. Just absence. For several nights, the countryside feels empty to reaction. Even the wind seems hesitant to pass through it, like the land is listening instead of living. Then the screams begin, not close, not far, just present enough to be real. They echo across the fields after midnight, stretching over distances that should break them apart, but they stay intact. No one in town acknowledges them, not even when I ask directly. Their faces shift slightly when I mention it, like the question itself creates discomfort rather than the answer. Dark figures begin appearing near telephone poles, still, upright, watching the roads, never moving when approached, only disappearing when I blink too long. Fog settles over the farmhouse for days without lifting. Not thick enough to trap me, just thick enough to remind me I'm not outside of it. Everything beyond the windows becomes blurred into soft shapes. The world loses distance, loses certainty. Even time feels padded and slow. Then I see it, a figure moving through the fog outside, not approaching, not retreating, just existing within sight at all times. Everywhere I look, it remains, between trees, near the fence, at the edge of the field, always visible in some direction, never fully gone. At first, I think it is watching me, but slowly I realize something worse. It mirrors me. When I stop moving, it stops. When I shift slightly, it shifts too. Not perfectly. Slightly delayed. Like it is learning me through repetition. On the final night of the fog, I stand still longer than before. The figure does the same. Then, for the first time, it does not copy correctly. It moves on its own, one step closer, without waiting for me. The windmill has not worked in years. Its blades were removed long ago, leaving only a skeletal tower rising above the hill. Still, something gathers above it each evening. A red light, not blinking, not sweeping, just hanging there, suspended like a held breath in the sky. When it appears, everything else fails. The radio dies first, then the lights inside the farmhouse. Even the wind feels interrupted, as if it forgets how to move. Silence deepens in layers. I climb the hill during a rainstorm. Water runs cold along my neck, soaking into clothes that already feel too heavy. The windmill stands ahead, dark and still, but the light above it remains unchanged. Perfect, waiting. The structure begins to turn as I approach. No blades attached, still rotating. Slowly at first, then with growing certainty, like something invisible has learned how to move it. The metal groans, not in resistance, but in recognition. From above the clouds, something whispers. Not words I understand, not language I can hold on to, just presence shaped into sound. And I realize it is not speaking to me. It is speaking around me, as if I am inside the middle of something far older than attention. The voice begins as memory. Familiar, soft, almost kind. It calls my name from outside the farmhouse at night. Not loudly, just close enough that I cannot ignore it. At first, I think it is my imagination trying to build comfort from grief. The voice sounds like my younger brother. The exact tone, the exact pauses. A version of him that should not exist anymore. He died years ago. That fact does not stop the voice. It only makes it more precise. Each night, it calls from a different direction. The field, the barn, the edge of the road. Never the same place twice. Always nearby. Always just out of sight. Then one night, it comes from inside the house. The basement door, locked, still shaking slightly as the voice speaks again. Closer than it should be allowed to be. Deep in the forest, I find a window frame standing alone. No wall, no structure, just a frame supported by nothing but time and refusal to fall. Moonlight passes through it unnaturally bright, not reflecting, revealing. The space inside the frame shows a farmhouse, but not the one I stand in now. An older version, or something pretending to be older. Rooms are arranged differently. Lights move where they shouldn't. Figures pass through hallways that should be empty. One of them stops, slowly turns toward the window, toward me, even though it should not be possible for it to see me through something that does not belong to either world. The air around the frame tightens, like the forest itself is holding its breath to avoid being noticed, and I step back before understanding what I just witnessed. The radio tower stands far beyond the edge of town, decommissioned, rusted, forgotten in official terms, but still active in ways no one admits. The broadcast started before I noticed them. Late at night, faint signals bleeding through silence, speaking in fragments. Inside the station, dust covers everything except the equipment. Some of it is powered. Some of it should not be. Recordings play automatically when I enter. Voices describing events that have not happened yet. Disappearances, arrivals, movements tied to places I know too well. One recording describes me arriving at the farmhouse. Not recently, not even in memory, but before I ever believed I chose to come here. The final tape begins normally, then shifts into something closer to panic. Not a story, a reaction. Screaming rises through static until even that fails to continue. And then nothing. The sound starts above me. Slow steps across the roof. Too heavy to be animal. Too deliberate to be weather. Each impact sends dust drifting down through ceiling cracks. Like the house is shedding something it cannot hold anymore. I climb into the attic. The air there feels tighter than before, as if the space has shrunk without changing shape. The footsteps continue overhead, directly above the attic window, moving in patterns that circle without purpose, then pause, then resume again. I look outside through the small glass. The roof stretches upward into darkness, but something moves across it. Something too large to be measured by angle or distance. It crawls upside down, slowly, effortlessly, as if gravity is only an option it chose not to follow. And in that moment, the house feels less like shelter and more like something being examined from the outside, piece by piece. The harvest moon rose over the fields like something too large to belong to the sky. Pale, full, quiet in a way that felt intentional. I stood at the farmhouse window, watching it hold still above the horizon. The glass was cold under my fingertips, cold enough to sting. Inside the house, every surface felt slightly wrong. Not changed, just tuned to something I couldn't hear yet. It started with the radios. Not one, not two, all of them. From town, from farms, from empty buildings I could not even see. Every receiver turned on at the same moment. A single tone filled everything. Low, steady, endless. It pressed against the bones more than the ears. Like the world itself had begun to vibrate inward. People began to walk. I saw them from the porch. Silhouettes moving through the fields, slow and unresisting. Their steps soft against the dirt. Grass brushing their legs like hands trying to guide them forward. No one spoke. No one looked back. Only forward, toward the pale glow gathering above the wheat. The lights appeared next. Not falling, not rising. Floating just above the crops, as if the air had learned how to hold brightness without burning it. They drifted in soft clusters, moving without wind, without pattern I could understand. The fields beneath them shimmered, like water, remembering it used to reflect the sky. I followed, not because I chose to, because stopping felt heavier than moving. The ground was damp, cold through my boots. The air carried the smell of wet grain, and something older beneath it, like metal left in rain too long. The people ahead of me slowed, then stopped, all at once. Silence dropped into the field like a weight. No movement, no breath I could hear. No rustling, no shifting earth. Only stillness stretched too far. Every person turned upward at the same time. Slow, synchronized, unthinking. Their faces caught in the pale light, eyes reflecting something I could not see above them. I followed their gaze, but the sky gave nothing back. Only depth. The next morning, the kitchen table held a photograph. I didn't put it there. I never heard it arrive. It simply existed, waiting in the center of worn wood. An old family portrait. Faded, blurred, edges soft like memory, trying not to commit. At first, I tried to ignore it, but it returned every day. Same place, same silence. Each morning, the image became clearer, faces sharpening slowly, like time itself was correcting an old mistake. The farmhouse in the background matched mine too closely, too precisely. Then I saw myself, standing among them, not as a stranger, not as someone visiting, as if I had always belonged there, even before I arrived. The realization didn't hit quickly. It settled, quiet, heavy, irreversible. On the final morning, the photograph was fully clear, every face defined, every detail sharp. And behind the family stood another figure, not part of them, not fully inside the frame, just there, watching through the space between what should and should not exist. That night, the world changed again. All natural sound disappeared. No wind through wheat. No insect in the fields. No distant machines from roads that used to exist in my awareness. Even the house felt emptied of itself. The silence hurt. Not emotionally. Physically. Like pressure building inside the head with nowhere to go. I pressed my hands to the walls. Felt nothing move back. The farmhouse had become hollow in a way I couldn't define. Then the hum began. Not above, not around. Beneath, deep underground, rising through soil and wood and bone-thin cracks in the floor. It wasn't loud. It was total. Something massive moving slowly above the clouds answered in return, though I never saw it directly. Only felt the delay between earth and sky, like they were speaking without words. The barn door appeared the next day. Or maybe it had always been there. I just finally noticed it. Beneath loose hay and old wood, a metal surface waited, sealed and rusted. The lock was scratched clean in places that looked too new, to belong to age. It opened downward. Cold air rose from the gap, carrying the smell of damp tunnels and forgotten machinery. Emergency lights lined the descent, flickering weakly, as if still deciding whether to stay awake. The tunnel stretched too far for something built by human hands alone. Photographs covered the walls, journals stacked unevenly, records of people who had lived here before me, people who never left, names repeated across years like the land refused to forget them or refused to release them. At the end of the tunnel stood a sealed room, no visible door, only a humming behind the wall. Patient, steady, alive in a way stone should not be. I stood there for a long time, not moving, just listening to something that felt like it was listening back. The final night came without warning. No build-up, no change in weather, only certainty that something had already begun. The lights returned above the fields, stronger now, lower, closer to the ground. The sky itself felt pressed downward. Everything connected. The figure at the barn, the static in the wheat, the missing hours, the photographs, the silence beneath the floorboards, the voices in places that should not hold voices, not separate events. A single pattern finally revealing its shape. I walked toward the barn. Each step felt less like movement and more like agreement. The field was no longer empty. It was waiting in layers I could not fully see. Figures stood near the edge of the wheat, still, unblinking, patient. The pale light gathered above them, steady as breath held too long. And I understood something without being told. Nothing here had started recently. It had only reached a point where I could finally notice it. I kept walking anyway, not because I knew what was waiting, but because stopping felt like forgetting everything at once. Behind me, the farmhouse stood quiet in the rising fog, empty, still, unchanged, as the field slowly swallowed the last trace of where I had been. The kitchen is colder in the morning than it should be, cold enough that the air feels like it has weight. I stand there without moving for a while, listening to the house settle, listening to nothing settle back. The table is already waiting. The photograph is there again. Same place, same silence, as if it never leaves. I don't remember printing it. I don't remember taking it, but it arrives anyway, softly, like it belongs more to the house than to me. At first, the faces are unclear, blurred edges, soft shapes where identity should be. The farmhouse in the background looks familiar, but wrong in a way I can't explain, like I've seen it before I was supposed to understand what it meant. The air smells faintly of dust and old paper. I don't touch it yet. The next morning, it changes, not dramatically, not suddenly, just clearer, the blur thinning like fog being pulled apart by something patient. The figures in the photo begin to form. Eyes, shoulders, outlines of clothing that feels too familiar. My fingers hover above the table, but I don't let them land. By the third morning, I already know what is happening. The image is learning me, or I am being returned to it. I can't decide which one feels worse. The kitchen creaks softly behind me, with shifting under invisible pressure. The photograph remains still, watching without eyes. On the fourth morning, I recognize myself, standing inside the image, not outside it, not separate from it, inside it. The realization doesn't feel like shock. It feels like memory correcting itself, slowly, carefully, without permission. I sit down at the table, though I don't remember choosing to. The chair is colder than the floor. The photograph is closer than it should be, even though it hasn't moved. The farmhouse behind the figures looks exactly like this one, but older, or maybe unfinished, like something still deciding what it will become. On the final morning, I wait before the light enters the kitchen. The photograph is already there, but it is different, sharper than before. Every detail fully formed, every face complete. The air feels too still to breathe properly. And then I see it. One extra figure behind the family. Not part of the group. Not facing forward. Just positioned in a way that suggests it has always been there. Even when it wasn't visible. Its presence changes the weight of the room. The kitchen feels smaller. The table feels farther away. I lean closer. The glass of the photograph is cold when my breath touches it. Condensation does not form. It doesn't react at all. Like it exists in a version of reality that does not allow touch to matter. That night, everything outside disappears. No wind, no insects, no distant movement of the fields. The farmhouse feels sealed inside something larger than silence. Even time feels hesitant, like it is unsure whether to continue. Then the silence becomes pressure, not soundlessness. Absence, so complete it starts to hurt behind the eyes. I press my palm to the wall. It feels distant, like the house is no longer fully connected to itself. The hum begins beneath the floor, soft at first, then deeper, not vibrating through air, but through everything underneath it. Wood, stone, bone. It all begins to feel like it is listening to something buried. I lie awake, staring at the ceiling. Dust hangs motionless in the air. Even it seems unsure whether to fall. The hum grows steady, like a presence settling into place beneath the farmhouse, not arriving, revealing itself. Somewhere far above, something massive moves through the sky, not visible through the windows, only felt in the way the air stops pretending it is empty. The house responds without sound, like it recognizes what is above it. By morning, the photograph is gone. The table is empty, but the impression remains. A faint mark in the wood where it had been sitting. Warm. Or maybe not warm at all. Just remembered. I don't know if I am still part of the house, or if the house has already finished remembering me. Outside, the fields stay still longer than they should, waiting for something to continue where the photograph stopped. The night begins without warning, not in darkness, not in light, just a sudden absence of everything familiar. At first, I don't notice it. I am standing in the hallway when I realize something is missing. Not an object, not a sound. All sound. The house is completely silent. No wind brushing the walls. No distant insects outside the fields. No soft settling of wood. Even my own breathing feels like it doesn't belong here, like it is being produced somewhere else. I step into the kitchen. The air feels thick, almost resistant to movement. My footsteps make no echo, not because they are quiet, but because the space refuses to respond. I open the door outside. The porch is still. The fields are still. Even the fog that usually gathers near the ground is frozen in place, like time forgot how to continue it. The silence presses harder. Not around me, through me. My chest tightens. Not fear yet. Something earlier than fear, like the body recognizing a rule has been broken, but not knowing which one. Then the silence deepens. It stops feeling empty. It starts feeling occupied, as if the absence itself has weight. I kneel near the porch step. The wood is cold under my hand, colder than it should be for a summer night. There is no vibration from the ground, no insects, no movement beneath soil. Even the earth feels paused. And then the hum begins, not in the air, under it, deep below everything. Slow at first, almost hesitant. I stand up too quickly. The sound grows as I move, not reacting to me but revealing itself through me. It doesn't come from one direction. It comes from everywhere beneath the surface at once, like the entire ground has become a single breathing thing. The sky feels wrong when I look up. Clouds are present, but unmoving, layered in shapes that don't shift even slightly. Something massive moves behind them. Not fast, not slow, just continuous, as if it has always been moving and I am only now allowed to notice it. The hum grows stronger. It vibrates through the porch railing, through my bones, through the idea that I am separate from the house. That idea begins to weaken. I press my hands to my ears. It doesn't help. The sound is not entering. It is already inside. I realize then what the silence was. It wasn't absence. It was preparation. A space being cleared. A moment being held open. The farmhouse creaks behind me, not from wind, from pressure, like the structure itself is adjusting to something passing above it. For a brief moment, I think I hear something above the clouds respond. Not words, not language, just acknowledgement. A vast, slow confirmation. The hum steadies, becomes constant, like the earth has finished waking up to something it forgot it contained. I stay outside longer than I should, not because I want to, because movement feels uncertain now, like it might interrupt something that is already in progress. Eventually, The silence does not return. It simply changes shape. The world does not regain sound. It begins to carry it differently. By the time I go back inside, the house feels unchanged. But I know it isn't. Nothing that heard that silence can stay the same afterward. I don't sleep, not because I can't, because sleep feels like it belongs to a world that is no longer fully available. Outside, the hum continues beneath everything. Slow, patient, endless. Like something beneath the farmhouse has finally remembered it is not alone. The barn feels different at night. Not louder, not darker, just heavier. Like something inside it has changed its mind about staying hidden. I find the door beneath the hay, by accident. Or maybe not accident. The floor shifts slightly when I step over it. A hollow sound beneath that should be solid. I kneel down, brush the hay aside, and feel metal. Cold, flat, real. The door is buried deep under barn floor. A seam in the earth pretending to be forgotten. Rust covers most of it, but not evenly. Some parts look disturbed, recently disturbed, like something has been trying to remember how to open it. I don't remember finding the tools, but my hands are already clearing it. With creaks above me, the barn settles around the movement, like it is aware of what I'm doing. The lock is still attached. Heavy, old, fused with age, but the scratches are new. Sharp lines cutting through rust that should have taken decades to form. Not human patience. Something else. Something persistent. The door opens downward. Not outward. Not upward. Down. A slow pull into the ground as if the earth has decided to give it back. Cold air rises immediately. Thick. Damp. Breathing. It smells like stone that has never seen light. I step inside. The ladder is metal. Slick with moisture. It trembles slightly under my weight, though nothing else moves. Above me, the barn feels farther away with each step, like distance is being rewritten. The tunnel is lined with emergency lights. Faint, flickering, unreliable. They don't illuminate the space properly. They only suggest it. Walls, floor, depth, but never clarity. Photographs hang along the walls first, pinned unevenly. Some old, some newer than they should be. Faces I don't recognize. Places that look like this farm from different versions of time. Then the journals. Stacked. Open. Closed mid-thought. Pages filled with repeated names. Repeated dates. Repeated disappearances that seem to orbit this land like it was always the center of them. I start to understand something I don't want to understand. This farm is not isolated. It is referenced. Like a point other things measure themselves against before vanishing. The deeper I go, the colder it becomes. Not temperature alone. Expectation. Like something is aware I have reached a part where people usually stop returning. The tunnel narrows slightly. The emergency lights flicker more often now. Each flicker feels like a blink from something watching from behind the walls. Then I reach the end. A sealed room. No door handle. No visible lock. Just smooth metal and a soft vibration behind it. The hum is here. Not distant anymore. Not beneath the house. Here, pressing against the other side of the wall, like breath held too long. I place my hand on the metal. It is warm, not from heat, from presence. Like something on the other side has noticed contact. For a moment, I think I hear movement inside. Slow, patient, close, not trying to escape. Trying to finish something that was interrupted long ago. I don't open it, not because I choose not to, but because I understand, suddenly and fully, that it is not waiting to be opened. It is waiting for agreement. Behind me, the tunnel feels longer than before, as if distance has quietly increased while I was standing still. I walk back without turning on my flashlight again. The emergency lights feel less like guidance now, more like reminders that I am still inside something that remembers me. Above, the barn is silent when I return, but silence no longer feels empty. It feels attentive, like something has already noticed I went below and is waiting to see what I brought back with me. The final night doesn't arrive with weather. It arrives with certainty, a quiet understanding in the air that nothing else will come after this. The fields begin to glow before the sky changes. Pale light spreads across the wheat like something being poured from above, slow and deliberate, soaking into the land instead of touching it. No wind moves it, no storm shapes it. It simply becomes bright. I stand at the farmhouse door for a long time. The wood beneath my feet feels different now. Not old, not new, just aware, like it has finally finished pretending it was ever only a structure. The lights above the field descend, not falling, not floating, lowering themselves in layers, as if the sky is letting go of something that's held too long. Each one leaves a faint pressure in the air behind it, like a thought being removed. Everything I've seen starts to align. The figure by the barn, the counting radio, the creek lights, the drawings in the upstairs room, the silent farm animals, the missing hours, the humming beneath the floor. Not separate events, not accidents. A single pattern finally complete enough to notice itself. I walk forward. The porch creaks once beneath my step, then stops responding entirely. Even sound feels optional now. The barn stands ahead, dark against the glowing fields. Figures wait near it, not moving closer, not stepping back, just positioned as if they have always been there. Even when I was not allowed to perceive them, the air feels layered. Every breath carries something behind it. Not smell, not sound, presence, like the world is no longer empty between objects. I keep walking, not because I understand, because stopping feels like interrupting something that was already finished long before I arrived. The pale light above the fields intensifies, and for the first time, I realize it is not illuminating the land. It is revealing it, slowly removing whatever was covering it before. The farmhouse behind me grows quieter, not empty, stripped of definition, like it is being remembered instead of observed. I reach the edge of the field. The wheat bends slightly as I pass through it. Though there is still no wind, it feels like acknowledgement rather than movement. The figures near the barn do not react when I approach, but I feel them notice, not visually, internally, like awareness shifting direction. The truth never forms into words. It never becomes explanation. It stays larger than language, older than understanding, something that was here before I arrived and will remain after I stop noticing it. I step closer, anyway, because nothing else feels possible in a world that has already decided what I am part of. The lights gather overhead, closer now, low enough that the sky no longer feels distant, only layered. And in that final moment, I understand without being told. Everything that happened here was not leading toward an ending. It was leading toward recognition. The farmhouse stands behind me in the fog when morning comes. Empty, still, as if it never belonged to movement in the first place. The fields are quiet again, but not peaceful, just complete. And the silence that remains feels less like absence and more like something finally finished listening.